Hey class, today we're going to be reading The Pumpkinville Mystery by Bruce B. Cole, illustrated by James Warhol. Once upon a time, long before the horses and buggy had given way to the motor car, a town called Pumpkinville sprang up out in the prairies, just a hoot and a holler to the right of Turkeytown and a stone's throw from the lower bend in the old spooky river. Now, I am telling you this tale the way I heard it from my father, who heard it from his father, who heard it from his father, who was there in Pumpkinville the very night the Pumpkinville Mystery began. Pumpkinville was founded by Hollis J. Goodbuddy and his wife Betsy, who were forced to leave Turkeytown by greedy old Mr. Featherbed and the no-good members of Turkeytown Council and the Chamber of Commerce. For many years, the people of Turkeytown had prospered by raising turkeys. The families who lived on the grassy knolls overlooking Turkeytown got richer than the others and built silos that reached the sky. They filled their silos with corn until they were about to burst. These folks elected themselves to the Turkeytown Council and Chamber of Commerce and began to buy up all the neighboring fields. Well, this did not seem to bother anyone except Hollis J. Goodbuddy. What Mr. Goodbuddy saw that no one else did was the councilmen gobbling up all the fields where corn was grown, the corn to feed the turkeys the town folks raised. Mr. Goodbuddy realized that someday pretty soon, everyone in Turkeytown would have to come to the councilmen with hat in hand, begging for help to feed their turkeys. But no one even suspected the councilmen's plan. The summer Hollis and Betsy Goodbuddy left Turkeytown, it was so hot and dry you could see the bottom of old spooky river. The grass turned brown and the corn grew only as high as a grasshopper's knee. Now remember, these councilmen had stored up all the turkey feed hereabouts. How much do you think they would charge for a small bag? Not much. Well, you guessed wrong. Half of everything you owned is what you would have to pay if you bought turkey feed from the councilmen. And as the summer got hotter and drier, there was no one else to buy from. Mr. Featherbed, the oldest and meanest of the councilmen, had to hire 3 people to carry him around because he had so much gold and silver stuffed into his oversized pockets. Mr. Featherbed looked about 150 years old with a pushed-in face that never smiled. Why, the wrinkles on his forehead were so deep you could grow corn in them. Anyhow, he sure wanted to get Mr. Hollis J. Goodbuddy and his wife out of town. Now, during the summer dry spell, a stranger wandered into town one night. I don't know his name. I don't know that anyone got his name. But he asked everyone in town for shelter and something to eat. As I heard it, this stranger was kind of scary looking. He walked slowly and leaned on his big walking stick. You could hardly see his face because of his hooded coat he wore. But people said he had fire in his eyes and a mouth that went almost from one ear to another. Everywhere he moved, he was followed by a cat as black as midnight with green eyes that you could see right through. No one would help the stranger that night but Hollis J. Goodbuddy and Betsy. The stranger warmed himself by their blazing fire and shared their meal even though there was hardly enough to fill one plate. Before supper was over, the stranger suddenly stood up and said he had miles to go before his journey was over. He offered gold from a sack he pulled out of his hooded coat, but Goodbuddies refused it. So instead, the stranger gave Hollis and Betsy a bag of seeds, which he said would someday be worth more than gold, if they did exactly what he said. Come the harvest, he told them, they must move out onto the prairie just to the right of Turkeytown, where they would find a field ready to be planted with pumpkins. But first, before they moved away, they had to plant 3 of the seeds right in Turkeytown. The Goodbuddies didn't know anything about growing pumpkins and told the visitors so, but the stranger just embraced them both, saying he had searched long and far before finding the kindness they showed him. Then, without another word, he disappeared down the road as the moon was rising away with the night. As the stranger had told them, the Goodbuddies planted the 3 seeds. The seeds must have been magic because each one grew as big as a barn in the twinkling of an eye. Summer waved goodbye to Turkeytown, but left behind leaves that were golden yellow, and the Good Buddies' pumpkin fields that was ripe harvest orange. Hollis and Betsy shared their pumpkin harvest with everyone who had no food to eat. Pumpkin pie, pumpkin soup, pumpkin bread, pumpkin pudding. If it had not been for those pumpkins, the people of Turkeytown would have had to sell their homes, lock, stock, and barrel to the greedy councilmen for turkey feed. But thanks to Hollis and Betsy, they could eat and they could feed their turkeys pumpkin seeds. This made Mr. Featherbed and the other councilmen so angry, they cooked up a dastardly scheme and laughed among themselves at how mean and low they could be. On the first moonless night, the councilmen, disguised as wolves and ghosts and creatures of the night, crept and crawled their way over to the Good Buddies' farm. While Hollis and Betsy slept, the councilmen smashed the pumpkins to a pulp and stole all the seeds. Then they danced around a bonfire, chanting rhymes of boogeymen and monsters. Roused from sleep, the frightened people of Turkeytown peered through the curtain windows in time only to see the long shadows fleeing, but eerie shrieks came from the woods for the rest of the night. While the councilmen were celebrating their victory and counting their stolen pumpkin seeds, Hollis J. Goodbuddy and his wife Betsy pulled up stakes. By the time the councilmen had found out, they had moved. As they had been told by the stranger, they moved a stone's throw away, just to the right of Turkeytown, and were growing more pumpkins. Some of the townspeople went with the Good Buddies and helped found a new town they called Pumpkinville. They built the houses of Pumpkinville in a circle around the pumpkin patch and celebrated with their first pumpkin pie bake-off ever. To record, fiddlers and jug band musicians played and ate everyone's pumpkin pie and danced. Best of all, there was a long-distance pumpkin seed spitting contest which became famous in these here parts. Folks began leaving Turkeytown for Pumpkinville as quickly as leaves falling from a tree. Too bad that wicked Mr. Featherbed and his band of thieves, who would put gold in the councilmen's pockets now. That scheming Mr. Featherbed figured that if a nasty plan worked once, it would work again. The councilmen marked their calendars for October 31st so that the harvest would be complete. Now, I'm not saying that you have to believe the events I'm about to unfold, but you can find the truth in every young child's heart on Halloween night. Well, sir, the Turkeytown Council and Chamber of Commerce sure picked one scary, misty, pitch-black night to go for a visit, especially a not-so-friendly visit. The road between the two towns was wide and open, but to avoid being seen, the 7 councilmen led by Mr. Featherbed crept over a slope of a hog-back ridge and through a narrow, winding woods full of hoot owls, bats, and coyotes. Hollis had spent a long day harvesting and stacking pumpkins in a circle. He was tired. As the sun was setting, he hunkered down by a tree stump on the edge of the pumpkin patch to watch the last rays of the sun shine on the field and dozed off with a smile on his face. Night had fallen as the 7 councilmen snuck into Hollis's pumpkin patch with their gunny sacks. Mr. Featherbed picked up a pumpkin in each hand and was about to smash them together like cymbals when a black cat with piercing green eyes leaped into the center of the pumpkin patch. It hissed and arched its bristles, every black hair. Through a thick mist, a hooded figure moved slowly towards the cowering 7. With each step, their 7 heartbeats quickened until they beat like tom-toms. The hooded stranger stretched out his willowy arm, and immediately the largest pumpkin began to shake and grow. Eyes and a mouth with jagged teeth appeared, while a blazing fire burst forth from the pumpkin's belly. 7 vines snaked their way from the pumpkin to the councilmen, wrapping them in a cold embrace, pulling them closer and closer to the ever-growing pumpkin. Mr. Featherbed yelled, "Save me!" and a chorus of wolves in the woods howled and woke up Hollis from what he thought must have been a dream. He had goosebumps all over, but he jumped into the circle of pumpkins and stood toe-to-toe with the hooded figure. "You must stop now," Hollis said. "Let them go home." The hooded figure pulled a handful of crushed seeds out of his cloak and with a flick of his wrist scattered them in a shower. The vines released the councilmen like spinning tops and sent them running home as fast as their legs could carry them. In another instant, the black cat had disappeared with its master, leaving Hollis alone in the middle of the pumpkin circle. When Hollis got home to Betsy, he put a pumpkin with a carved face in their window with a candle glowing inside to keep the spirits of the night away from their door. The councilmen promised each other never to tell anyone how frightened they had been on that night. Of course, that's how legends begin. From that year on, near the end of October, all the people of Pumpkinville carved faces on their pumpkins just as Hollis had done and invited the children to go door to door for candy and other treats. The idea spread from Pumpkinville to just about every town. You probably have glowing pumpkins in your own town around Halloween, too. Well, for now, you know where the whole thing started. At least that's how I learned the story from my daddy's grandpa. The end.